Alright guys, today I'm going to be talking to you about how to use yielding and overcoming isometrics in order to build muscle, okay? Now, there's two types of isometric movements, okay? There's yielding isometrics and there's overcoming isometrics. So a yielding isometric is when you hold a position for a certain period of time, or where you pause within a certain part of a rep while you're doing a specific exercise. So, two examples of a yielding isometric would be a YTW iso hold. We're holding a Y position for 20 seconds, T position for 20 seconds, and then W position for 20 seconds each letter. So that's yielding because you're just pausing in that position. Another type of example would be where you're doing goblet squats, but you pause in the bottom portion of the squat before you come back up, and you do that every rep. Again, both of those are examples of yielding isometrics. And then an overcoming isometric is when you push, pull, or squat, or press, pull, or squat against an immovable object. So you set up a barbell underneath the safety pins within a squat rack while you're bench pressing, and you try to press the bar up into the pins as hard as you can for an extended period of time, generally no more than 5 or 6 seconds each rep. Or you would go and you would load up a trap bar deadlift or a normal straight bar deadlift with a normal barbell deadlift with a weight that you couldn't be able to lift, depending on how strong you are, with 400, 500, 600 pounds, and you try to deadlift that. So you try to pull it as hard as you can. You can also do the deadlifts against the pins in the rack, just setting them lower at certain portions to test certain portions of the deadlift. Or if you do a squat, or like a split squat, single leg squat, where you've got the bar on your back, again, you're underneath the safety pins and you're trying to drive up hard into those. Now, very commonly, both of those types of isometrics would be used to get a person stronger and to promote positional stability. So a couple examples of how that would be used. So for yielding isometric, very commonly it's used for pause squats. So while I was getting ready for my first powerlifting meet, Pat, my coach, and who was helping do my program, one of my friends, was having me work up to a heavy weight for the day, but then I was doing back offsets, and during those back offsets, which were a certain percentage of whatever I worked up to that day, I would do 2-second pauses in the bottom of the hole. So that would be a yielding isometric. What that really does is that the yielding isometric, where you're pausing in a mechanically weak position, so the bottom portion of a squat, right at the bottom position of a bench press without touching your chest, for example, it really helps you develop the ability to produce force in that position. And especially like in the squat, for example, it reduces the amount of stretch reflex that you would get by bouncing out of the bottom portion of your the squat, reducing the amount of elastic energy that you would use in order that you store in your tendons and ligaments on the and muscle on the way down during the eccentric component, reduces that ability to use that bounce and that elastic rebound to get out of the hole and come back up on the concentric portion. So that really places the emphasis more on muscular contraction and muscular strength to get up, so that when I was at the meet and I didn't have to do that pause down at the bottom portion of the squat, I had that stretch reflex there to help me, but I was also, trained in producing force with just like my legs and my back out of the bottom portion of the hole. So greatly helps develop positional strength where you pause in that the position that you want, and helps promote stability. So your body will not let you produce as much force as you can if it doesn't feel that you have the ability to control that position or be stable in that position, generally for fear of trying to reduce your injury risk. So when you pause in a certain portion or pause at a specific point, you really have the ability to refine your skill, refine your technique there, feel kind of every portion of your body, and make sure that it's kind of your technique's on point, your stability is on point. Then you can drive up out of the hole, and over time that'll help you be more comfortable in those uncomfortable positions within the lifts. Okay. Now for an overcoming isometric, again, pushing or pulling or squatting against something that you can't move, what happens is you maximally recruit motor units, okay? So a motor unit is a nerve going down to a specific group of muscle fibers, okay? So classically, a motor unit is the motor neuron, or again, the motor nerve, and all of the muscle fibers it innervates or turns on and activates when the electrical signal goes down the nerve, okay? Well, as we get stronger, we get more access to higher threshold motor units, which are basically motor units that have the ability to produce more force, whether that's through slow-moving, strength-based movements, or fast-moving, power-based movements over time. And through practice and through strength training, we gain access to those higher threshold motor units, okay? Well, excuse me, say you can deadlift 405, just as an example, okay? When you have 135 on the bar and you're warming up, when you put 225 on the bar and you're warming up, unless you're trying to move that bar as fast as you possibly can, you're only going to recruit the amount of motor units that you need to move that weight, okay? Because your body's trying to look for efficiency. Your body's kind of built for that endurance aspect as opposed to like maximum power output. So it's built to and wired to kind of take that more efficient path. So if you're deadlifting 135 and that's a very light weight for you, then it's only going to try to use the energy and motor units required to deadlift that 135 so it doesn't fatigue out super quickly, okay? There are ways to kind of get around that and to recruit maximum or high threshold motor units as big or as much as you can through dynamic effort training, where you're using a certain percentage of your 1 rep max and trying to move the bar as fast as you can. But I'm not going to get into that right now. That's a video for another day. But there are ways to do that. Now, if you're just generally strength training, you need to work up to a close to maximum weight, depending on the amount or for however many reps that you're doing, in order to maximally recruit and create that maximal muscle tension and maximally recruit those high threshold motor units, okay? Now, with an overcoming isometric, that kind of happens naturally. So you're trying to press against something that's so heavy that you cannot move it. So your body's trying to recruit all of the motor units that you have access to produce as much force as you can in that, again, that 5 to 6 second window that you're trying to press that bar, for example, okay? So it helps you gain access to those higher threshold motor units quickly and more effectively, as opposed to some like regular strength training, okay? Now, some of the downside to that is that it really only works the angle that you are specifically pressing at. So the most benefit that you're going to get is at that specific joint angle that you're pressing or pulling or squatting against, okay? Now, that strength will translate on average 10 degrees or 15 to 20 degrees above and below the movement. But so it doesn't translate as well throughout the entire range of motion. So again, it's really good to do a combination of a bunch of different things to actually get all the benefits out of strength training. So one thing that I want to point out is that those overcoming isometrics really are more of an intermediate or advanced technique. You're going to start gaining access to higher threshold motor units, or motor units that have the ability to produce more force and more power, just by strength training and learning movements, if you're a beginner. So don't necessarily worry about like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do dynamic effort training, I got to do overcoming isometrics in order to continue to get better. If you're just starting out, just learning how to bench, squat, deadlift, push sleds, do push-ups better, do pull-ups better, those are going to help you gain access to those higher threshold motor units because you're just going to get stronger in general, okay? Now, what I want to talk about is how isometrics can be used to build muscle. So there's 3 components or 3 types of ways to stimulate muscle growth or muscle hypertrophy. And the first one is muscular damage. Classically, a lot of people say that you can't use isometrics to build muscle because it doesn't cause a lot of muscle damage. And that's kind of like a lot of that soreness and stuff that you would feel within the day, the next day or the days after a workout. When you break down a muscle, you literally cause micro tears in the muscle fiber, tendons and ligaments in the area, and then your body responds by building those back up stronger and bigger than they were before. Then the next component of muscle hypertrophy is mechanical tension, which is when you try to lift a heavier weight or try to be able to do more work by increasing the amount of volume that you do within a workout over time. So like literally just adding 5-10 pounds to the bar every week. And again, if you're a beginner, that might be even more when you initially start. Or metabolic stress, which is going to be the one that I talk a lot about right now. Okay, metabolic stress is that pump that bodybuilders chase. An increase in blood flow to the area, trying to bring nutrients into the working muscle and trying to get rid of metabolic waste products. But then your body is basically not able to keep up with work, and blood kind of pools within a specific area, and you get that pump. That's where your arms look super big after you do a lot of bicep curls and tricep extensions, or you can't even really flex your quads after you're doing Bulgarian split squats for so long, stuff. So now we're going to kind of go over what that metabolic stress is, okay? So if you see over here, the way that we're going to build muscle is it's going to be through, the start of it is local muscular occlusion. So when your muscles contract, they actually shorten and on the concentric action, and they pinch around or pinch off the blood vessels and arteries that go into that area, okay? So that's what occlusion is that pinching and reduction of blood flow into an area just by normal muscular contraction. That starts to happen when a muscle is loaded at 10 to 15% of their maximum tension or more. So when you're getting up to a really, really heavy lift, you might be at 100% of occlusion, where there's actually no blood flow getting into that area. That's why your muscles need to be able to produce energy without oxygen. That's why there's a couple energy systems dedicated to that. Again, I'm not going to get into that here specifically, but that's kind of what's happening to start, okay? So that occlusion causes what's called a hypoxic state, okay? Hypoxic state means kind of like what I was just saying before. There's very low or no oxygen present in that environment, and that is one of the initial signals to stimulate muscle growth. That hypoxic environment causes a lot of metabolic waste to build up within the muscle. And if you see, I have the H+ there when it says metabolic waste. Specifically, that's hydrogen ions. I'm not going to get, again, too much into how the energy system actually works and produces ATP for your muscles to actually work, again, for a different video. But that burning sensation that you're feeling, it's not the buildup of lactate or lactic acid, which is commonly mistaken for, but it's the buildup of hydrogen ions, which is a metabolic waste product that your body kind of naturally gives off or gets rid of or tries to get rid of when it produces energy or produces ATP to be able to do work, okay? So that build-up of that hydrogen ions, because it causes that burning sensation in the muscle, it's called metabolic acidosis. It means your blood and your muscle is literally becoming more acidic, and that's when we start to get that localized muscle fatigue and that burning sensation, okay? Because of that, because of the burn, because of the hypoxic environment, all those things stimulate muscle protein synthesis, hard to say for me, muscle protein synthesis after you recover. Now, what's going to happen is why we're going to use isometrics to stimulate that muscle growth, okay? So I was talking about that occlusion before. So when you're holding a position, your body over time is actually, pinching off those blood vessels and not allowing a lot of blood to get into the area. And the harder you contract, the more you'll actually pinch off that blood flow and cause that hypoxic state, which again leads to that increase in metabolic waste products, okay? Well, so that's how you're going to start one of these finishers, is by holding position, holding a yielding isometric. For the first one, it's a YTW iso hold. For the second one, it's a band pull apart hold, okay? So again, we're getting into that hypoxic state. We're gonna really start feeling that burn because of that, okay? Then afterwards, for the first one, whether you're gonna move into the YTW surfers and black burns, or you're gonna move into the band pull aparts for reps, basically what you're doing is, so to use the band pull apart as an example, when you bring the arms back and squeeze, you're again going to cut off that blood flow, okay? But then when you bring it back and relax, then, or like elongate the muscles in the back, some blood is going to rush into the area in order to try to bring nutrients to the area and remove waste products as quickly as it can. But then you're going to contract again, so that blood kind of gets stuck in that area, and then it comes back out, or you bring your arms back forward, and the cycle continues to go, okay? So over time, that blood is going to kind of get stuck and trapped in that area, and that is what that pump is, okay? So you can feel a lot of burning from the isometric holds at the beginning, and then you're going to get a lot of blood into the muscle and stimulate that blood into the muscle because your body's trying to recover from the iso hold, where you're just going to keep doing reps until you're super fatigued there. That is what is going to stimulate that muscle growth. So that occlusion before reps equals that huge pump. That pump is that metabolic stress, so it's going to cause those buildup in hydrogen ions, that buildup in lactate. Again, that's not what is causing the soreness, but it's associated with it. That over time will lead to muscle hypertrophy. So now I'm going to show you a couple examples of how to actually use this within your training. Again, the format that we're going to be using is you're going to start this will generally be a finisher to our upper body day, because I'm going to show you 2 upper back examples. You're going to start each with the isometric hold, so a yielding isometric, and then you're going to go into reps. So again, the yielding isometric to promote that acidic, that hypoxic environment, and build up those metabolic waste products, and then those reps right afterwards to pump blood into the area to increase that metabolic stress stimulus. So that's the YTW ISO into surfers into Blackburn finisher. How I would progress that is I would keep the ISO hold the same at the start. I would say 20 seconds each letter. And then I would try to get more reps in the upcoming weeks on each of the surfer and the Blackburn. So I started with 8 in the first week. Next week I would try to hold that and get 10 reps of each. Between 2 and 3 sets at the end of the workout. Try to get it with about a minute in between. That'll really increase the pump, and that'll make set 2 and 3 way harder. best band pull apart iso, the band pull aparts for reps, into another band pull apart iso. So I did a minute pull, then I tried to get as many reps as I could in the minute, and then I tried to do a minute pull again. So again, the way that I would progress that, so I keep the initial hold the same, then you can either just try to get more reps within the time period that you're doing normal band pull parts, or try to get the same, shoot for a specific number, and then try to hold the last iso hold for a little bit longer. How I would progress that is keep the minute, try to get more reps, and then keep the 30 seconds, but you can choose to do it however you want to. And again, I would do between 2 and 3 sets at the end of an upper body workout. At the end of your workout, would try to get between a minute and a minute and a half in between as rests at the most.